So for years, I was over at the Road Theater in North Hollywood in the Lancashire space, and Antaeus was next door. So I knew a lot of fellow artists. There was a lot of as theater artists in Los Angeles, we all kind of work at all the theaters. There's this wonderful network of people, and we do know each other. It's strange because a lot of people come to Los Angeles, they think there's no theater here. There's a gorgeous theater community. It's just different because we're so spread out, but we all sort of work with each other, and little groups pop up. And I got asked, a couple of Antaeus members had come to see some stuff over at the Road because it was next door. And then I got invited to participate in a reading, and then eventually asked to audition for a show. Oh gosh, a long time ago, called The Malcontent, which I was then cast in. And then I was asked to become a company member right after that. But I think for me, why I want it, first of all, I'm classically trained. So I got classically trained at Northwestern. I love Shakespeare, Chekhov, Shaw, Pinter, Stoppard, Carol Churchill, Lorraine Hansberry, Alice Childress. Like these I love rich text. I love words. I always have. And I grew up actually, this will add up. I'm legally blind, actually. I grew up not being able to see at all. And so from a very young age, they didn't realize it until I was in second grade when I finally got glasses and, oh, that's what's on the blackboard. So my eyes are terrible. So I can be corrected to almost 20/20, but not really with, contact lenses and stuff, but I can't see. And so my early childhood, because they didn't know that, everything is auditory for me. So everything is about what I hear and the rhythm of speech and how people talk. And so to have a classical theater company in LA that was doing, like, marrying the classics with what we see today. And so I'd always wanted to work there. The reputation was so high. I would go to their readings, I'd see them, and they were just such really beautiful actors, and they honored the text, but they were also so themselves. And I was so flattered when I got asked to do a reading and then got asked to audition for a play. I worked so hard on that audition. I was like, I want to do this. And it's just become this place I call home, and I'm so proud of the work we've done. I'm proud of what we're doing right now. It's this last few years have been so hard. I think in addition to COVID, a lot of groups and organizations are really taking a hard look at themselves and who they want to be in the world. And we've been doing that, and I'm really proud of what we've done and what we're trying to do. And there is no point in doing a classic if it can't be told today, and if the people who are listening can't hear it. And that to me is so important. And so for Antaeus, I think it's this beautiful, we're always in this tension of how do we honor the classic, but do it today? And we fight about it. We're like, how are we going to do this? And so I love being a part of that tension. I love being a part of people that care so deeply. And I also, Antaeus was founded by actors who were working in film and television. And while that can be so rewarding and exciting, found some of it wanting and wanted to go back to their theatrical roots to stay trained up. And that to me is absolutely where I fit. That's my philosophy. That's my belief system. And so, and I also I don't tend to do anything halfway. So anytime I'm a member of something, group or whatever, I just kind of go in. So after I was asked to be a company member, then I started helping out backstage. I then eventually was asked to be the company manager, which I did for 2.5 years, or almost 2.5 years, was company manager. I've done casting there. I run the arts education program. So I've hosted a lot of readings. I kind of immersed myself in the company and never looked back, just never looked back. So I was there at the very beginning, actually, when Ed Napier, this wonderful writer, a good friend of Rob Nagel's and John Sloan's, and Emily Chase and I I believe that's kind of the founding group, this playwright said, hey, you guys, come on, you guys have these great actors. Why don't you do new plays too? And there was a bit of, well, that's not what we do. And he's like, yeah, but how do you know there's not a new classic out there? Good point. And so we formed it. I was on those original meetings, and we didn't want to do Mondays because everyone has classes and does stuff on Mondays. So we're like, let's just gather in the library Tuesday nights. Let's just start reading new plays. Let's just bring in some playwright friends we have. And so I was there from the very beginning. As I hadn't written at that point, I hadn't written in a very long time. I hadn't really written anything new. I was mostly being an actor, and I was working at Antaeus company manager. So I was writing new media, but I wasn't really writing plays. And so I thought, oh, this will be a great way to kind of get back in and just kind of bring some old stuff in and see where I'm at. And it did the trick, man. It really kickstarted my career back up. And it was funny, I brought some old material that wasn't really finished that has now been finished, several plays. And then I also brought back some old stuff that I had finished, and I looked back, I was like, wow, this is not really what it needs to be. This is a little not up to snuff, as they say. So I was there from the very beginning, and initially we were just meeting on Tuesday nights very casually. There were days it was 5 people. There were days it was 50 people crammed in that library. Oh God, I say that now with COVID and I think, 50 people in a small space. It's not funny. But yeah, we just kept meeting. We just kept meeting and meeting and meeting. And then it sort of became something more formal, and we started doing more formal projects, and we've built these relationships with these amazing writers. Writers have come and gone. We have members we haven't seen in a while because they're off doing their stuff, and then people come back, people bring in new friends. The level of talent is just, writers, we're an odd bunch because we don't tend to publicize ourselves as much. We don't tend to get out there. People see our work, they don't know who we are as much. And I mean, if we're actors or we have actors in our family, that's different. But a lot of us kind of hide out. And so it offered this place where writers we could meet writers, and we could meet each other and share what's going on in the world, where we're having trouble, where things are going really well, this whole world of new media that opened up. I mean, I write for new media, and I was writing back in the day. A friend of mine said, we should write a web series. I was like, what's a web series? It's like a TV series, but it's on the web. What do you mean? Now it's new media. Now it's a whole thing, so as the options for writers have expanded, and now with COVID, Zoom, I mean, I write for Zoom, and I have playwright friends, we write for this medium. It's a whole different medium. So it has become just this wonderful place where we can connect. We always have these deadlines, so we always are producing something. My most recent play that I finished was because of a Playwrights Lab deadline. I signed up to write for a deadline. I signed up for a date, and they were like, you need to have 20 pages. And I said, well, I'm going to go grab something old. I was like, no, I should write something new. And I wrote 20 pages, and then I finished that play in 2 weeks, which was crazy. Now, it had been an idea that had been percolating for 3 years. But because of that deadline, I have a brand new play. And also I know it's a supportive environment where I can, I can bring my stuff and know I'll be supported and cared for. And the critique is always so smart, and it's just everybody's coming from different walks of life. So you just get these thoughts you'd never heard of before. But we've become a family. So we also know how to parse out that information too. Someone will throw something at you and you're like, oh, that's an interesting idea. Oh, but no, that's not for my play. Or someone will throw something out. You're like, no, so it has this wonderful collaborative vibe. So I was in it in the very beginning, and I just, again, have never looked back. I wouldn't want to ever step away from that group. It's been very influential and powerful for me as a writer. One of the perks, if you say, or the joy of the Playwrights Lab is the level of actors that are reading. And I think because all of our actors that come to us on some level have some kind of classical training. Now, whether they went to formal school or whether they just love Shakespeare, or they love poetry, or there is this honoring of the text. So whatever actors we get, they love words and speaking words. And they also just go for it. Like nobody comes to the lab and is, I love you, Brenda, you're amazing. No one's just reading. Even the playwrights, when they read other people's stuff, there's this energy and care and love and celebration of the written word. Or even if we have some writers that write in really high style, you think of the visuals as they're writing, and actors will play in this Zoom box, they'll play and they'll do stuff. So just the leap into the unknown that the actors that are associated with Antaeus, whether they are direct members or not, there is this, I guess there's this understanding that the bar is really high, so you better jump. And it's an exciting one. It really, anytime I get asked to read in the lab, I do it up. Like I prepare, I read the script, I make some choices. I sometimes put on silly wigs or whatever. We all really bring our best foot forward and just leap into it. And I think it's, a lot of it's the reputation of Antaeus that, this 20 some odd years that we've been here and always done really exciting, good work. I think that has a lot to do with it. But I think people, I think people are hungry for new, good work. And I think people are also hungry for work that is not just about what I call issue plays, or my friend calls them C plays. Like someone writes a play where someone's dying of cancer. It's like, oh, C, cancer's bad. Or C, our world's in turmoil. But I find that the playwrights in this lab in particular, and there are other labs too that do a great job, but I have found they're writing on a deeper level than that. It's not just, oh, we're in the middle of a pandemic. What does that really mean for a human being to be trapped and locked up? What does it mean to have these unbelievably difficult racial issues that we can't talk about? What does that really mean? Not that, oh, racism's bad. But wait, what does that really do to a human to believe that certain people are less than, or to not know that you think the way you think? So I find that the group we've brought together, we're really encouraging everybody to dive deeper. And I think that has come from this foundation in classical text, and not in the snooty way of classical text, like, oh, we know Shakespeare. No, that there is something the writers who have gone before us are telling us, and we need to listen. And classical text does not mean Shakespeare. It does mean James Baldwin. It does mean, Janae Park. And we are opening up to who are the shoulders that we stand on? Who are those people, those writers, those artists? And I think because of that lineage in that way, that connection, I think it inspires writers to really bring deeper work, not just work of the day. And I think that I'm guessing that's why we get so many incredible actors, because they want to be a part of that kind of work. They don't want to just do surface level stuff. And so I think it's an attraction rather than a promotion. We just get actors who, really want to be a part of that. And I think too, even actors maybe that think, oh, I don't know the classics, I can't participate. I find when there's really deep, beautiful human work, it calls out the best in every actor as well. So maybe actors that are younger, they're like, oh, I don't really have training in the classics. They find all of a sudden, oh, wow, I know how to do this, because it's asking of them something deeper. And I think that's really important. And maybe that's why I'm not showing it for sure, but that may be why. Playwrights Lab is important to Antaeus because it keeps the dust off the books. We are a classical theater company, and we can get really caught up in old-timey stuff. We can get caught up in, oh, how is Shakespeare done right? We can. We're a group of people. We know each other really well. We're like a little closed circuit, and we can just loop around again and again and da-da-da. The Playwrights Lab forces the fresh air. It forces us to keep the dust off the books, to look at something maybe we've never looked at before, and to try something that may fail. It may not work. We may try something, it's like, oh, that's a bad idea, but we tried it. We tried it and opened it up. It forces us to stay in the present and to look back at the classics as tales of humanity, not this little bubble that's our protected little shell. So, because we can all get like that, like we like what we know. You know, I like what I know. It's comfortable here. I like it this way. It forces us to change, and I think that's very healthy for us. And again, it reminds us why we're here as artists. We're not here to tell stories of the past in a past way. We're here to tell stories of the past in the present. So it forces us to do that. So I love that. And it's important to the theater community at large because it also gives other theaters a model of what they can do. You know, so other theaters, maybe they do a very specific kind of work. They can go, oh, wait, we could do this too. And I think it also, you know, there are a lot of theater companies in LA just dedicated to new work. So we're not cracking the mold there, you know, that we're following them in, if anything. But I think then inviting maybe a theater company that does only new work to think of, wait, how could we do also expand into doing adaptations of classics? Like, so I think it's this beautiful offering of always looking again, what have our ancestors done? What have we done in the past? How can we bring that into the future so that we're not getting theater companies that just do one thing? We're not like all in their own little niche. We're opening up this idea that what is a theater company? What could it be? Does it have to be just classical? Why can't it do new work? It's got great artists. Why not? Why can't a theater company dedicated to new writers also do an adaptation of a classic? Why can't they do that too? So I think it's offering a good stretching for the theater community, for Antaeus itself, keeping us fit, and it's offering the theater company, the theater community at large, to invite in the question, wait, what could we do as a theater company? And it's also just, it's bringing in new artists all the time. So it's, you know, it's the idea that if water just flows into one place and there's no outlet, it becomes the Dead Sea. Water has to flow in and it's got to flow out. You got to keep that circuit going. And I open up the circuit, if you will. And so the Playwrights Lab forces us to do it, even when we don't want to. So yeah, new voices, and I will say old voices that we maybe have not been listening to. Why should other artists get involved in Antaeus Theatre Company and the Playwrights Lab? Just why not? Because it's a great place, because there's really clever, wonderful artists there. And again, we playwrights tend not to we don't know how to promote ourselves always, because we spend a lot of time alone in front of a computer or a typewriter, if anyone still does that, or with a pencil and pen at a coffee shop. And sometimes it's hard for writers to engage. We can be private by nature, and sometimes that's really hard. But to have a place where you can just kind of log in on Zoom or show up at the theater, you can sit in the back and just heard your words read. So it supports different kinds of artists, not just us outward facing ones, but also maybe more private artists that are a little shyer, more shy, I guess. I don't know which one's right. I'll have to look that up. It invites in different kinds of styles of artists. So you don't have to be this kind of writer. You can be this kind of writer. We have a writer in our group that basically created a play that's just a poem. It's a poem. It's actually a poem. It's a theatrical poem. And that's what it is. So just, you know, it's really a wonderful, I think it strikes that beautiful balance between it's exclusive and inclusive at the same time. That's a very, very tricky line to walk. And I think it has to be walked. If we're too exclusive, then we're not speaking to the community. If we're so inclusive, then it's a mess, right? We've got to find that way to have a structure that is open. And that requires constant attention and nurturing and allowing and stretching into places we don't want to stretch. And so I say to artists to get involved with the Playwrights Lab and with Antaeus, you're going to get stretched. So if you want a stretching, come. Theaters like Antaeus all theaters are so important because we need a place as humans to tell our stories and to tell them in a form, because otherwise it just becomes a bunch of Facebook posts. So what we're getting in our world today through social media is a lot of posting. So I'm expressing myself. The problem is my expressions are not being received in a way that I can actually experience. So I get little likes or thumbs up, or someone screams at me back because they don't like what I said, and then it becomes an argument. So we're broadcasting, but no one's really listening. In the theater, it's not merely expression, it's conveyance. So as an artist, as a human being, I don't feel connected until I am experiencing conveyance. Expression is one thing, that is important. But when it's received by another human being and I see it being received, whether they like it or not, if they're like, ew, oh, wow, why, ew, why didn't you like it? That's when we feel human. And that's what a theater does. A theater is a place of conveyance of human expression. And if we are not experiencing conveyance, I think we die. I literally think we die. I think we starve and we die. And we turn into what we are experiencing in our world, where we're yelling and no one's listening. And so because no one's listening, we yell louder. But when you are in a theater experience, a storytelling experience, someone's listening, someone's talking. And then after it's over, it switches. Then the audience talks to the artist. I loved how you did that. I loved how you did that. And the artist is like, oh, interesting, or interesting. It's an exchange. And we're not exchanging right now. We're just screaming into the void. And what a shock we don't feel heard, because we're not being heard. And a theater experience, again, forces exchange. We have to sit and listen to each other. And then you listen, and then I listen. And then you listen, and then I listen. And I think people are hungry for that, and I think they're starving for that. So every local theater needs to be supported by the community, because it's a place to go to practice that, to stay human, to stay present, to stay in the here and now. And theaters that have communities that have theaters do better. They do better. People are kinder. There's less crime. There's more thriving. There's more sharing. There's more understanding. Wonder why? So I encourage anyone, you have an extra 50 cents, throw it at your local theater. Go find your local theater. It's there. You don't realize it's there. It's above the pet shop. You know, you don't know. What are all those people with white pieces of paper outside talking to themselves? Oh, it's a little theater. It's a little studio. Go there. See what's there. You know, it's so vital. It's so important. It's so important. We're starving and we need to feed ourselves. And that's how we feed ourselves. I'm Ann Noble, and I'm a very proud member of Antaeus Theatre Company and its Playwrights Lab. And I encourage everyone to come and listen, antaeus.org. Listen to all the zip code plays. You will learn a lot about Los Angeles.